look at that router sitting on your shelf, or the one in your home office. It's probably a brand you recognise, Linksys, Netgear, maybe a Cisco Soho model. You set it up 3 years ago, you changed the Wi-Fi password once, and you haven't thought about it since.
I mean, as long as the Netflix stream doesn't buffer, it's basically furniture to me.
Exactly, and most other people, and that's what attackers are counting on. Because right now that router might be part of a global relay station for the Chinese Ministry of State Security. It might be the very piece of hardware that allows a hacker in Beijing to look like they're logging in from your living room when they attack a water treatment plant in Georgia.
This isn't just a theory. In 2024 and 2025, we saw the dismantling of massive botnets, thousands upon thousands of these home routers. They were being used as a cloaking device for the most dangerous cyber actors on the planet.
Call them the Typhoons.
I'm Tova Dvorin, and welcome back to the Safe Breach Studios for the Cyber Resilience Brief, a Safe Breach podcast. Listeners, today we continue part 2 of our deeper dive into Chinese cyber threats, the storm that never ends.
And I'm Adrian Culley, your co-host and offensive cybersecurity engineer.
Today we're diving into the storm. We're talking about Volt Typhoon, Salt Typhoon, and Flax Typhoon. These aren't just names on a spreadsheet. They are the frontline units of China's pre-positioning strategy. So Adrian, for the listeners, can we explain the naming convention? Why Typhoon?
So, great question. Microsoft's Threat Intelligence Center, along with several Western government agencies, moved to a new naming system a few years back. The name group's based on the country of origin. So Typhoon is the designation for China. If you hear blizzard, that's Russia. And sandstorm is Iran. So think typhoon storms, snow blizzards for Russia, and desert and sandstorm for Iran. It's quite logical.
Stereotypical but effective. And these typhoons have been making landfall in some very sensitive places lately. Let's start with the one that changed the conversation in Washington. That's Volt Typhoon.
Volt Typhoon is unique to them. Most hackers want data. They want your emails, your trade secrets, your credit card numbers, financial information. But when investigators found Volt Typhoon inside American critical infrastructure in 2023, 2024, ports, energy grids, water systems, they noticed something weird.
Yes, it's that they weren't stealing anything.
Not a thing. They weren't exfiltrating files. They weren't even looking for blueprints. They were just staying. They were maintaining access. We call this pre-positioning.
It's like finding a stranger in your basement, but instead of stealing your TV, they're just hanging out and making sure the gas line is easy to cut if they ever need to come back.
That's exactly it. And the way they've stayed hidden so long, in some cases for over 5 years, is a technique called living off the land.
So living off the land is not, a Survivor show sequel. In cybersecurity, it's much more clinical. Adrian, walk us through it.
So normally, Tova, when a hacker breaks into a computer, they bring a toolkit. Specialised malware, viruses or backdoors. Modern security software is really good at spotting those tools. It's like, think of it as a cyber metal detector, like you see at an airport.
Okay, but what if the hacker doesn't bring any tools?
That's the secret. No tools, they walk straight through the metal detector. What they're doing is they're using tools that are already there. They use administrative tools like PowerShell, WMI or NetSH. These are legitimate programs that your IT department uses every day to manage the network.
It's funny because in true crime, actual home invaders and attackers tend to have a very similar system. The name is evading me right now, but generally speaking, when attackers come into your home, they have one of two options. They either bring their weapons with them, or they use a weapon on site and end up transferring something out of the site. But anyway, from a cybersecurity perspective, it looks like the IT is just doing its job because he's using things that are already there.
Precisely. Volt Typhoon mastered this. They would steal a legitimate username and password, maybe through a phishing email or a vulnerability in a VPN or an initial access broker. And then they would move through the network using only native commands. No alarms, no malware detected, no pop-ups. They blended into the background noise of the company, and it's very difficult to see.
And because they're using legitimate credentials, they don't look like an intruder. They look like an employee who's working late.
And that's why the breakout time has become so critical. In 2025, we saw Chinese actors moving from a single compromised computer to full control of a network in under 50 minutes, less than an hour. By the time you realise something is wrong, they've already changed the locks.
So if Volt Typhoon is the infrastructure ghost, then Salt Typhoon is something else entirely. We started hearing this name late in 2024. By the way, if you're a listener of the podcast, go back and re-listen to our episodes in Salt Typhoon and Volt Typhoon. But by 2025, it was clear we were dealing with a massive intelligence breach.
So Salt Typhoon specialises in telecommunications. Their target isn't your power plant, it's your phone.
And we'll be right back.
They were the ones that linked to the breach of major U.S. telecom providers, companies like AT&T, Verizon, and Lumen. But they weren't just looking for your text messages, were they?
It's much more sophisticated. They targeted the Lawful Intercept systems. In fact, there's breaking news today on the 27th of January around US and UK government telecommunications. Government ministers being spied upon by China using exactly what I'm about to talk about. It's very real, and it's major breaking news right now. So these Lawful Intercept systems are built into all telecoms. They're licensed, and it's a requirement of the government that the companies providing telecommunication systems are able to provide lawful intercept services to the government and intelligence services for monitoring serious organised crime and terrorism. So think of FBI, NSA, Unit 8200, GCHQ, and this is all legal, lawful, court-ordered, but it's very low profile in almost every country in the world. It's secret.
Wait, so the Chinese government hacked the system that the US government uses to hack criminals?
Essentially, yes. They gained access to the Intercept management platforms. This allowed them to see who the US government was monitoring, or the UK government. If the FBI was wiretapping a Chinese spy in DC, Salt Typhoon could potentially see that in real time. It's very powerful counter-espionage, counterintelligence.
It's essentially a hall of mirrors. They're monitoring the monitors.
Exactly, that very famous phrase in espionage, a hall of mirrors, a desert of mirrors, and they don't stop there. They're collecting signalling data, the metadata, the digital paperwork that says phone A called phone B at 2 p.m. for 20 minutes. For a counterintelligence officer in Beijing, that's pure gold. They can map out the entire social and professional network of every high-ranking official in any compromised government.
Finally, we have Flax Typhoon. If Salt and Volt are about precision and persistence, Flax is about the infrastructure of invisibility.
This brings us back to that router we talked about at the start of this episode. Flax Typhoon was responsible for the KV botnet. They exploited a vulnerability in small office and home office SOHO routers, stuffed people buy at Staples or on Amazon.
Yeah, they built a network of hundreds of thousands of these routers, but they weren't using them to send spam or launch DDoS attacks.
No, they used them as a proxy layer. When a Volt Typhoon hacker in Shanghai wanted to log on to a US power grid, they wouldn't connect directly. They'd bounce their traffic through 10 different home routers in 10 different US cities.
When the security team at the power grid looks at the logs, it doesn't say login from Shanghai. It says login from a Comcast customer in Des Moines.
Exactly. It makes the attack look domestic. It bypasses all of the geofencing rules that companies use to block traffic from foreign countries. Late 2024, the FBI actually had to get a court order to remotely vaccinate these routers, to go in and kill the botnet software because the owners of the routers had no idea they were even infected. It wasn't possible to give out, like we give out, car safety advice, wear your seatbelt, road safety advice to children to cross the road. It doesn't work giving out advice to home users about how to make their routers safe. It had to be done by the FBI on behalf of everybody.
It still makes me wonder why they needed a court order if these backdoors are already built in to that technology to begin with, right? So why would they need a court order to be able to go in and fix it?
Because it's intrusive for the user. They're not asking your permission. They're coming in and making a physical change, and it's making sure they're not committing any computer misuse offences.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Okay. So we have ghosts in our power grids, vampires in our phones, and an army of hijacked routers in our living rooms. I won't call them zombies, but maybe. It feels like the Typhoon is already here.
It is, but it's a slow-motion disaster. The goal isn't to destroy us today. The goal is to be ready to destroy us if a conflict over Taiwan or the South China Sea ever gets hot and kinetic.
It's the ultimate deterrent. It's a mutually assured destruction for the digital age.
But the Typhoons aren't the only ones out there, Tova. While these groups are doing the military's dirty work, there's another group, one that's even more elusive. They're the mercenaries of the Chinese state.
And stick with us, because next time in Episode 3, Double Dragon, we're looking at them. That's APT-41. They're the hackers who work for the government day by day and steal millions in cryptocurrency for themselves by night.
We'll look at how they bridged the gap between state espionage and organised crime, and how they pulled off one of the biggest supply chain hacks in history.
But until next time, stay safe. Stay safe with SafeBreach.
The Cyber Resilience Brief is a SafeBreach podcast. Executive produced by Adrian Culley and Tova Dvorin. Music produced by Sar Dressner. Hosted, edited, and compiled on Riverside. For more about SafeBreach and how you can validate your security controls across your entire IT infrastructure, visit us at www.safebreach.com. That's www.safebearch.com.